Hey there! Have you ever wondered how the money you spend on a coffee makes its way back to you in the form of a paycheck? Or how the entire economy, with its billions of transactions every day, actually works? It can seem incredibly complex, but at its core, it follows a surprisingly simple pattern. Today, we're going to unravel that pattern by exploring a fundamental concept in economics, the circular flow model. And don't worry, I promise to keep it straightforward. We'll use simple definitions and clear everyday examples to build a map of our economic world piece by piece. So, what exactly is this circular flow? Think of the economy not as a straight line, but as a continuous, dynamic loop. It's a system where money, goods, and services are constantly moving between everyone involved. This model is our guide to understanding that movement, showing how every dollar spent and every hour worked fits into the bigger picture. To make things easy, let's begin with the simplest version of this model, a closed economy. All this means is that for now, we're going to imagine an economy that is completely self-contained. There's no international trade, no imports or exports. We're just focusing on the activity happening inside a single country's borders. In this basic model, there are two primary groups of decision makers, the main characters in our economic story, households and firms. These two groups are completely dependent on each other. First, let's talk about households. This includes you, me, our families, and our neighbors. Basically, all the individuals in the economy. The key thing to remember about households is that we are the owners of all the economic resources, also known as the factors of production. What are these resources? The first and most obvious one is labor. This is the physical and mental effort we provide when we go to work, whether as a teacher, a software developer, or a construction worker. Next is land, which includes not just physical land for farming or building, but all natural resources like oil, water, and minerals. Then there's capital. Now, in economics, capital doesn't just mean money. It refers to man-made goods used to produce other things, like machinery in a factory, computers in an office, or even the delivery truck for a local bakery. Finally, there's entrepreneurship, the innovative spirit that combines the other three factors to create new businesses and products. On the other side of the loop, we have firms. These are the businesses that produce and sell goods and services. A firm can be anything from your local corner store or a freelance graphic designer to a massive multinational corporation. Their fundamental role is to hire the factors of production from households and use them to create the things we want to buy, like smartphones, cars, haircuts, and streaming subscriptions. Now, where do these two groups meet? They interact in two distinct but connected markets. First is the factor market, sometimes called the resource market. This isn't a physical place, but a concept. It's where firms shop for the resources they need to produce things. Here, households are the sellers and firms are the buyers. You participate in the factor market every time you apply for a job. You're selling your labor. A landowner participates when they lease property to a company. They're selling the use of their land. The second is the product market. This is probably more familiar. It's where firms sell the goods and services they've created. In this market, the roles are reversed. Firms are the sellers, and households are the buyers. Every time you buy groceries, get a coffee, or pay for a Netflix subscription, you're participating in the product market. So let's trace the flow. It all starts in the factor market. Households provide their labor, land, capital, and entrepreneurship to firms. Think of it as a flow of real things. People going to work, land being used for factories, and machines running on an assembly line. In exchange for these resources, firms pay households. This creates a flow of money in the opposite direction. For their labor, households receive wages or salaries. For the use of their land, they receive rent. For lending their capital, they receive interest. And for their entrepreneurial efforts, they earn profits. This combined flow of money from firms to households is called income. Now households have money. What do they do with it? They spend it. This brings us to the product market. Households use their income to purchase the goods and services that firms have produced. This spending is called consumption. So, the money that flowed from firms to households as income now flows right back to the firms as revenue. And in return for that money, the goods and services flow from the firms to the households, completing the circle. You see the two loops? There's an inner loop of real things, resources flowing from households to firms, and goods and services flowing from firms to households. And there's an outer loop of money, income flowing from firms to households, and spending flowing from households to firms. It's a constant self-perpetuating cycle. Of course, the real world is a bit more complicated than just households and firms. Let's add a third major player into our model, the government. The government interacts with both households and firms. How? Primarily through taxes. It collects taxes, like income tax from households and corporate tax from firms. This represents a leakage from the circular flow because it's money that is taken out of the main loop of spending and income. But the government doesn't just hoard that money. It injects it back into the economy in two main ways. First, through government spending. It buys goods and services from firms, everything from fighter jets to office supplies. And it hires labor from households to staff public schools, police departments, and other agencies. Second, it makes transfer payments to households like Social Security or unemployment benefits, which households can then use for consumption. So the government takes money out with taxes, but it puts money back in through spending and transfers, keeping the overall flow moving. Finally, let's break down the walls of our closed economy and connect it to the rest of the world. This creates an open economy. We now have a fourth player, the foreign sector. This sector introduces two new flows, imports and exports. When households, firms, or the government in our country buy goods and services made in other countries, like a German car or a Japanese video game, we call these imports. This creates another leakage, as money flows out of our domestic economy to pay for those foreign products. On the flip side, when firms in our country sell their goods and services to people in other countries, like American software sold in Europe, we call these exports. This creates an injection, as money flows into our economy from abroad. A healthy economy often tries to balance these leakages and injections to maintain a stable flow. And there you have it. From a simple loop between households and firms, we've built a more complete picture that includes the government and the rest of the world. We can see how your decision to buy a locally made product versus an imported one, or how government tax policies can affect this entire flow. While this is still a simplified model, it's an incredibly powerful tool. It shows us that the economy isn't a mysterious, abstract force. It's a system made up of all of us, as workers, consumers, and citizens. And every action we take contributes to this continuous, circular flow of resources and money. Understanding this helps us make better sense of the world around us. Simple, right?